High-achieving technical professionals to take control of their careers while helping organizations optimize work through people, processes, and best practices. Her books, Making Flex Work, Defining Success on Your Own Terms, and Reimagine Your Work, Managing Your Career Like It Is Your Business, combine an engineering mindset with real-world insights to help professionals build meaningful, sustainable careers. With over 20 years of experience leading Fortune 500 technical teams, she offers practical strategies for success. Please join me in welcoming Wendy.
Hi, everybody. Hope you're having a great day. The agenda looks like it has been jam-packed, and I am so excited to be able to be a part of it here today. For those of you that are interested, we do have a digital handout. There's a QR code. So if you're looking at it on a computer and you want to zap it with your phone and grab the handout, you can do that. Also, I think one of our hosts can drop it into the chat. They have it as well as a PDF. So as we get started, I just want you to go ahead and let us know where you are joining from. If this is, something that you're excited about, tell us why you're excited to be here today. So I was born into a household with what I thought had a stay-at-home mom. I say thought because, see, I was born in the 1900s. That's what my son calls it. And in the 1900s, if you had a mom, the mom either went to work or she stayed at home. We didn't have the internet in my house. Most houses didn't have the internet. And so if you worked, you left the house. Well, my mom was at home. So I thought I had a stay-at-home mom. But it wasn't until years later that I found out that not all stay-at-home moms run their own business out of the house. See, that's what's interesting about my past. Melody, if you'll go to the next slide. I had a unique background that I did not know made it unique. And throughout my career, I was leveraging that past and I didn't even know it. See, I was having conversations in my engineering job about business because I grew up not knowing that business was different than life. In life, I had dinner while we talked about business. We talked about back orders and production. We talked about new business opportunities. We talked about financials, all while we ate dinner as a family. Because in a family business, there is no difference between life and family. Now, I don't know what your unique past is, but I hope you will take a moment and think about everything that has gotten you from birth to today. And let that help you to define what you will create as your unique future. So as you have a moment, and I see that people are using the chat, so let's keep doing that. Put something unique about your past into the chat so that we can help you start to leverage it for your unique future. I'll give us just a minute to do that. Maybe you're the first in your family to pursue engineering. Maybe you're one of a very large family. Maybe you grew up in a business that's very unique to engineers, but not unique to your family. Any of these things could help you to define a unique future because all of us are going to have a different future. See, what I didn't know what was unique about me was that this small business mindset that I brought to my engineering job, it was giving me power in a way that I was unaware. But I'm hoping that today, as you spend the hour with us, you will be able to start leveraging my unique past for your unique future. So if Melody will go to the next slide for us, I will tell you that the perspective I want you to have is that you are already running your own small business. Regardless of your age, regardless of the stage of your career, regardless if you have taken one internship or a co-op, or you're just thinking about what do you want to do with this new engineering degree. You are a product and you are running a business that sells that product. How many of you put your little tiny hand up if you knew that you were already a business owner before you got here today? I see a couple, see some little thumbs popping up. Yeah, you are a business owner and you are a product. Right? So I want you to take a moment and think about some of your favorite products or your favorite brands. And if you have a piece of paper and a pen, write it down. Write it down now. And if you don't, then use this device right here. Open up the Notes app or send yourself a text and write down what are some of your favorite brands, some of your favorite businesses. And as you are writing them down, I want you to think about what is coming to your mind about those businesses. What do they tell you about themselves when they advertise, when they put a label on their product? What are some of those things? I want you to write them down. I want you to be active for the next 30 minutes with me. I want you to be thinking about what are the things that you think of when you think of that brand. And I want you to do this because I want you to know that what you are thinking of is not an accident. Those companies spend millions of dollars potentially thinking about the products that they make and the brands that they build. Melanie, if you go to the next slide, it's important that you, as a product and a business, understand that your brand is as important as those brands that you were thinking of. Now, I did not put in the chat where I am from. I am from Atlanta, Georgia, in the USA. And there is something else that is headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia, in the USA, and that is the Coca-Cola Company. I will take a bet that no matter where you are in the world today, you have heard of Coca-Cola. And when I put up these chairs with this logo on the back of them, you already have an image in your mind about the company and the product. Maybe you know Coca-Cola as a company, but you don't even like to drink Coca-Cola as a beverage. That's me. I like Diet Coke. I have friends that like Coke Zero. I have friends that drink Sprite, right? All of those fall under those brands that they are managing. And part of the reason that we like them is not just the quality of the product, but also the way we connect with their brand. But the question is, how do they do that? How do they have you connect with that brand? And that's because they actively manage it. So I have an exercise on the handout that Melody put in the chat. It was also on that QR code in the front, and it's also on my website. So if you can't get anywhere else, go to reimagineyourwork.com. And on there are resources. We'll also have that website at the end. But in the book, on page 87, we have an exercise that talks about managing your brand. And it's also on that handout, and it's also on the next slide. So if we'll progress to the next slide. You already have a brand, right? It's something you can't hide from everyone. Everyone has one, and most people have multiple brands, depending on the situation and the audience. So to figure it out, I have a 4-step process for you. I am going to encourage you to follow this 4-step process with your network. Maybe your network are the people around you. Maybe your network is the other people that are as a part of IEEE. Maybe your network are the other participants in the Pathways to Industry event today. Maybe your network is your group on social media. Maybe it's your friends and family. You, as the owner of your business, managing your product, get to decide who your network is. You have so much power in this activity. What I want you to do is think about leveraging that network, however it is that you define it, and asking them each 3 questions. The first question is, what is one word you would use to describe me? Now, you and I have only been together for about 15 minutes, but you probably already have some words in your head about how you would describe me. You don't need to put them in the chat. We'll still be friends. But that's what's so powerful about this first question. Someone does not have to know you very long to know one word they would use to describe you. So it's very low effort for them. Also, most people will not say something ugly about you. They will either say something nice or they will say, I can't come up with one. Right? Okay, so the second question is, what am I best at? They actually have to know you a little bit to know what you're best at. But what's powerful about this question is it is the thing that they recommend you for when you are not in the room. When somebody says, do you know someone who, and they put in a blank, what am I best at? That's the time they say your name. For me, as a speaker and a trainer and an author, I hope people say that I am best at facilitating, or I am best at inspiring, or I am best at creating connection. But what if they don't? What if they don't say those things? Well, then I need to manage my brand in a way that they will. I need to actively work at doing the things that I want people to say I am best at. You may find that they think you are best at things you don't actually enjoy, and that's okay. I am excellent at math. I don't actually enjoy it. So just because I can do something doesn't mean I have to, but the knowledge is the power. The third question is, what is your favorite memory with me? And for those of us with engineering backgrounds, sometimes we think, well, that's not necessarily useful data. Why would the memory be useful? That is a useful piece of information because it engages a different part of your brain. Right? When we ask questions 1 and 2, we are asking about facts. We are engaging the fact centers in our brain. But when we ask about memories, we are activating an entirely different part of the subconscious. We can learn things that we don't know. We can jog our memory. That's a saying, right? In my Southern sayings, I like to say it could jog your memory. All it means is it can engage a different part of your brain than what you were thinking about when you were using logic. Now, if you are brave enough to throw this out into your social media network, you may find that people don't answer this third question as readily as they answer the other 2. That's often because their favorite memory is something silly, something foolish, something they don't want out on the internet. One of my favorite memories is one I am building right now with my family. I was telling the organizers before we came on stage that I am in a space that I did not plan to present from today because there was a major snowstorm yesterday where I am. And I can't leave the hotel, and my family is trapped in the hotel room. Not physically trapped, but we can't really go anywhere because there's ice and snow everywhere. So last night, after the snow and the ice came, my family put on our warm clothes and we went and had a snowball fight in the parking lot of the hotel. And then this morning, when we were supposed to leave the house, the hotel, we couldn't because there was ice all over the parking lot. So we went on an adventure in our cold clothes to figure out where we could sled on the ice, slip and slide down the hills of the ice and the snow in this town we are not familiar with. That was not the plan of the vacation. We're actually supposed to be visiting colleges for my high school aged son, but all of those colleges are closed. But I hope when my son looks back on this memory, he will remember the snowball fight and the sledding down a road while we hoped that no cars came. By thinking of that memory, though, he will unlock the rest of the story. He will say, I remember that we went to look at colleges. I will remember whatever we do see for those colleges once the ice hopefully thaws today and tomorrow. I hope that he will remember more than the silliness. But by asking about the favorite memory, the silliness brings the rest of that to mind. And then step 4 is one for you, not for your network. I want you to think about and reflect on things that come easily for you that are difficult for other people. And I'm going to give us just a moment to do that. So either with the pen and paper, like we talked about at the beginning, or the notes here on your phone, or maybe open another browser on your computer, I want you to start brainstorming a list of things that are easy for you and are difficult for other people. I'm going to be very quiet for a moment so that you have a time to think. Some things that come easily to me that are difficult for others are puzzles. And it might not feel like it's difficult to others because I have an engineering brain and stereotypically we all sort of like puzzles, right? But a lot of people do not like puzzles. But my favorite part of puzzles are people puzzles. Oh, some of us engineers just said, "Oh, people puzzles. I don't like those at all." See, that's something that I enjoy. It comes easy to me, but it's difficult for other people. And I've been able to leverage that in my career, both in the corporate world and now as a speaker and an author. People puzzles would be my answer to number 4. I believe that there was a poll that someone was going to be able to put in the chat for me. Can we do that first poll now by chance? I'm going to wait. So if you haven't been taking notes, this is your moment, right? So what are some things that are unique about your past? We also wanted to be taking notes about things that were easy for us and difficult for others. And we wanted to be taking notes about our favorite brands and what they bring to our minds. So here's our first poll. What is your favorite or go-to social media platform? I've given you some options. I don't know how the poll actually shows up. Melody, do you know how it shows up? We'll see. Here we go. Can you vote for this on the poll, please? Giving you some options. Okay. I think there's a way as we get those results in that we can actually see those results. Can we put the results in the chat maybe? If not, that's okay. We can move on. Well, it looks like we have a lot of LinkedIn and Instagram. There is one lower, I think, at the bottom there, if you want to see a little bit lower on the chat. Twitter's on there, if that's in Facebook, if that's one of yours, right? Okay, so I say this because depending on which social network you ask of your network, you might get different answers. So if we think about Twitter's much more of a push system. So when you ask for feedback, you may or may not get it based on what else is in their Twitter feed. LinkedIn, people are thinking about you in a professional way. On TikTok, you might have to create a video to even ask these questions, right? So, what we want you to do is think about how you can leverage the biggest group of people you can in order to think about your brand. Because that is really one of the most important things you can do as the owner of the business that sells that amazing product that is you. Now, there's something else that a business has, not just a brand, not just products. If we can go to the next slide, you will know that most businesses have a board of directors. You know, for me, the board of directors came at a very critical time in my career. There was a morning I was leading an R&D team, a research and development sustaining engineering team, and my phone rang. And that phone call came from the vice president, from the operations team, from manufacturing, from strategy, not from research and development. And as I picked up the phone, he started the conversation by saying, "There's a job open on my team." And as the manager, my brain started turning. Who is he taking off my team? Is it going to be Claire? Is it going to be Angela? Is he taking Mike? What am I going to do if Ruth leaves? What am I going to do if Mohammed isn't here to finish his work? And then, almost as if it was a cartoon, I could hear the tires screeching on the pavement as I heard him say, "So, what do you think? Would you be interested in a role like that?" Oh no, what was I going to do? I had no idea what he had said. I didn't know what the job was. I had no interest in working in manufacturing operations. I loved research and development, and I had not been paying attention as he was talking. So I did what all of us would do. And I said, I'm sorry, I lost the connection. Can you repeat that? Hmm, that's a lie. I hope my children's don't pick up, right? But he recapped very quickly what he had said. And I said, I'm really going to need to think about it. Can I call you tomorrow? He said, of course, that would be a huge career change. Call me tomorrow. Well, good thing I had a board of directors that I could go to. In any good business, there is a group of people that advise the leader of that business. And for me, I started making phone calls to my board. The first was to someone I refer to as my insider, corporate insider. We can go to the next slide, Melody. That corporate insider, her name was Andrea. Andrea worked in my same company, but she worked in a different area. And I said, "Andrea, we need to go to lunch." And she said, "Wendy, it's only 10:45." And I said, "I don't care. We're going to brunch. We're going to early lunch. I have a big decision to make and I need your help." So Andrea stopped what she was doing and we got in the car because I just needed to get away. I needed to be able to get in a place where I could wrap my head around something so very different. As I sat down with Andrea, I said, "This is who called me. Mike called. And this is the job he has in the strategy organization. And this is the role that he has. It's a promotion over my current role. What should I do?" And Andrea knew the business and she knew Mike and she knew the company and she knew the role. And she said, "Well, you should take the role." She said, "Have you watched every person that has taken a job on his team? Their career has skyrocketed. Have you watched how strategic he is with the way he creates value for the organization? Any opportunity to work for him is a good one." I said, "But Andrea, I love research and development." And she said, "But how can you pass up a chance like this?" And I said, "Thank you." When we finished our lunch and we went back to work, and I called someone else on my list, the second person on my board of directors, one of my industry experts, started texting with my friend Carrie. My friend Carrie lived in a different city. She and I had gone to college together. She was a mechanical engineer. I was a chemical engineer. She worked in the power industry. I worked in consumer products and healthcare. But she understood engineering jobs, and she understood careers, and she understood me. And I said, Carrie, I've got this opportunity. I can move out of research and development and I can move into the manufacturing operations, but I've never really wanted to work in supply chain and manufacturing. I don't know what that does for my career. Am I ever going to be able to come back and be a vice president in R&D like I want? And Carrie said, well, based on everything you've told me, I don't see a downside. This guy you're talking about working for, he used to be in R&D. He knows people in R&D. Your boss in R&D, you're not going to lose those people. I think you should go for it. She said, it's more money. It's a better title. It's a new experience. I don't see why not. So I had to call a mentor. I called one of my mentors and I said, what am I going to do? This is not in my career plan. And my mentor said, who cares about your career plan? This opportunity wasn't in your plan because you didn't know it was a possibility. And what if this is exactly the thing you need to catapult your career? I said, okay. Well, now I've had 3 people all say yes to something I did not want to say yes to. But I have this belief that if 3 people who have not talked about it at all with each other all give you the same answer, they're probably right. So I went and I did a check with the one last person, and that was my family. Because it was a change. It might mean that I had to travel more. It might mean that I worked different hours. It might mean that my commitments at work were different. And I needed to make sure that my husband and the other caregivers for my children, everybody understood what that meant and everybody was on board. And they were. So I took the job. I took the job with a plan to do it for 18 months and then come right back in to my research and development organization. As a matter of fact, I had a conversation with the vice president of R&D about this, about how I was going to do this and come back and how much stronger our organization would be when I did that. I made that pivot and stayed in that job for 10 more years. I had more fun in that job than I had had in the previous 10 years in research and development. It allowed me to do things I didn't know I could do with my engineering degree. Because as a chemical engineer, I didn't know that those jobs were open to me. But they were open because I was a chemical engineer with 10 years of experience at the company. That's the power of your board of directors. They can help you take a pivot that you might not have ever considered. And if you go to the next slide, Melody, it is because I want you to always have that strategic vision. I had it. I wanted to be a vice president in R&D. But I want you to write that vision in pencil, because throughout your career, you are going to change. Your company is going to change. Your industry is going to change. The world is going to change. And if you are not willing to erase and start over, to think about the new possibility as a result of those changes, you might not get to do something nearly as exciting as you could if you were willing to just erase that line and put something new in there. And many of you are probably thinking, but what am I going to do 20 years from now? That's so far away. And it is. I don't want you to think about 20 years ago all the time, or 20 years in the future all the time. I want you to do something very specific. And we're going to go back to that piece of paper and that pencil, or the notes, or your other window on your computer. And I want you to think about what is not the next job for you, which in some people on this event might be the first job. I don't want you to think about that one. I want you to think about the one after that one. I call it the job after the next job. So take a moment and think about not what the next job is, but what is the job after that? What might be interesting to you after you get your next job? The power in thinking about the job after the next job is it allows you to be strategic today. Many businesses and organizations put together strategic plans. They are usually 3 to 5 year plans, and almost never do they actually hit the end of those 3 or 5 year plans. Because the power of the 3 to 5 year plan is not hitting the 5 years and claiming success. The power of the 5 year plan is aligning the things you are doing today so that you will go towards that goal. So for you, thinking about the job after the next job is actually thinking about 3 to 5 years from now. If you are looking for a job and you are looking online or on LinkedIn, you can start to look for jobs that have 3 to 5 years more experience than you have today. You can start to look at those job postings and figure out what do they require so that by the time you are there, you can check off more of that list. You can also use it to look at job titles and then see what the job might do and realize that either you do like that or maybe you don't actually like that type of work. I would much rather know now that I don't want to do something in 5 years than get to 5 years, be offered that job and not know. If you recall, I was in that position once, and I don't want you to be in that position at all. So for me in 2022, I took an entirely new pivot again. So after 20 years in corporate America, I had the opportunity to do something totally different. If you go to the last slide, I took an opportunity to erase that strategic vision again and to set a new one. When my job was eliminated in 2022, sure, I could have gone and gotten another job. But I started dreaming about where I wanted to be 5 years from then. And I knew that I wanted to work with people and with organizations to help them think differently about work, to think differently about careers, to think differently about how we move business forward. So today, without taking that pivot, without having that strategic vision, and without being willing to erase some plans, I wouldn't be the best-selling author of 2 books. I wouldn't be talking to your group today. I wouldn't be able to help people around the world figure out what their unique future is and help them leverage their unique past. And I do all of that because before I ever started running the business that I run today, I was already running a business. And the business I was running sold one product, and that was me. And that allowed me to do all of these things in my career. And I hope that you will use today as an inspiration to figure out how you can run your career like a business so that when you look back on your career, you can say, I did all the things I wanted to do. And I defined my own future as we went forward. So I am ready to have a conversation, have some, but before we take it off, there are free resources. Melody put the website in the chat, but this QR code will take you right there. And I would love to connect with you guys on LinkedIn. Please send me a note. Tell me you were in the session, and I will be happy to connect with you. I post about careers and I post about leadership, and I post about non-traditional approaches to work. I also have a monthly newsletter one email a month on the first week of the month that comes out and talks about those things. So when you connect with me, either through the website or through LinkedIn, give me your email address and I will get you on that newsletter as well. It has been a blast talking to you guys today. I hope you found some inspiration, and I think we're just going to go back to being able to see screens. I think we'll find out. Excellent. Okay, so how can I take questions? Can we put them in the chat? Is that the easiest way? Excellent. Melody's muted, but if you want to throw a question in the chat, I can see the chat, I can read the chat, and I can answer any questions. We have about 10 minutes, I think.
Yeah. I am, we will start that while they're getting their questions ready. What is the key piece of advice to managing, besides having a board of directors, obviously, but for the next step of managing your career like a business, what would you say the next step is?
Yeah. So when you think about having your business, knowing that you're a business and you're a product, that's the first, right? Knowing that you have to manage that brand and that you have to have a strategic vision in your board of directors. I would say actively reviewing that, figuring out, if we think about from an engineering standpoint, we solve problems. And once you can create that strategic vision, you are now creating a problem, which is I want to be here in at a particular point in time, and I'm here today. And now we can start to solve that problem, right? We can say, we can break it down into small pieces. What experiences do I need? What skills do I need? Who do I need to meet? What rooms do I need to be in? What organizations do I need to be involved in? But if we don't have that plan, we won't know what we need to do to be strategic with our time.
Indeed. So trying to get my chat to go down. It's being ornery.
Okay, I have one I saw. Oh, there it is. Perfect. Thank you. So how can you have a brand and yet remain authentic? So I think that's an excellent question. And depending on where you are in the world, it may feel more or less comfortable to say manage your brand. I will tell you that today you already have a brand and you are being authentic to it. The question I pose back to the asker of the question is, do you know what that brand is and do you like it or not? Because if you like it, just keep being exactly who you are, right? But if you don't, then start to ask yourself the question, why do they have that opinion of me? What am I doing that is causing that brand? And if it is not a brand you want to have, then it is actually more authentic to manage it and not create the experiences that are giving someone that that perception than the other way around. Right? Okay, let's see. I got another question that just popped up. What is your biggest piece of advice for students who may have many interests but are still feeling lost? Oh, I get this all the time. So what hides in my bio that Melody read at the beginning is that I'm actually on the faculty at Georgia Tech as well in biomedical engineering. And so I have a lot of conversations with 20-year-old adults about what they want to be when they grow up. And the answer is you don't have to know what you want to be when you retire. You just have to know what you want to do next. And so thinking about the job after the next job will help you be strategic on the next job. And that next job, you're going to meet new people, get new experiences, and you'll be able to leverage those for a different next job when you start looking at the job after that next job. There is no wrong experience to get. There is no wrong business to go into. And as I tell my students, once you get one job, I can prove to you that you can get a job. So therefore, getting a second job is no longer the scary thing that it was the first time. Because once you've done it, now I can say, just do it again. You've already gotten a job. Right? Okay, I saw a new question pop up. How do I define a board of directors if you're in an academic field? So I'm assuming that this person, I'm assuming that you mean that you're like on a PhD track and you've already gotten your degree and you're now kind of in that world of academics. So I'm going to answer it that way, but if that's not correct, throw another question in the chat and I'll see it. The world of academia is difficult because we sort of run every lab like it's its own business. And so reaching out beyond that business can be difficult. But if you take a step back and you say it's really one big corporation, your institution is one big corporation with a bunch of little businesses underneath it. Now you can start to meet people in those other businesses who do something similar to you. If there is a Society of Women Engineers or a IEEE section, right? You can start to say, how are these people the same as me, even if they're doing something different, so that you can begin to build that out. It will also allow you to say your industry insiders will be people probably at your university or at your institution, but your corporate insiders might be in your lab or in your department. Right? So you can just continue to think about it regardless of where it is that you are. Okay, let's see. I have another question, which is how can you rebrand yourself? Okay, so this is a tricky one, and it has to do with the way people think about you. So we have to do a little bit of psychology. I'm going to assume that most people on this call like data, right? We wouldn't be engineers if we didn't have some sort of affinity for data. So here's the way it works when we look at data. If I collect a bunch of data, I like to draw a line through it, right? I have a scatter plot, and then naturally I just kind of draw a line. And if there's data that doesn't fit that line, we have a word for that, and that word is outlier. So if you have a brand and they've already drawn that line, if you do something different, they're going to see that dot that doesn't fit the data, and they're going to say, outlier. Do you know what we do with outliers? We rationalize it, we throw it away, we exclude it, right? So now we have to create another experience that creates another dot. And they're like, oh, now there's 2 outliers. Now there's 3 outliers. Now there's 4. And they start to say, oh, maybe it's not an outlier anymore. Maybe I actually don't have my trend line right anymore. So you have to create enough of those outlier experiences so that they draw a new line. And that new line is what your rebrand is. But understand that every time that you regress and you do something, they say, I was right. They didn't actually change their brand. So you have to be so intentional about making those experiences the way you want them to be, that's how it becomes authentic. To the earlier question, when you keep repeating the new thing, it becomes who you are because you don't get to regress. Because when you do, they say, gotcha. And they put you right back in the old brand. Okay, I have a new question. How do you balance a short-term opportunity with a long-term career aspiration? That is an excellent question. I think you do that by having a solid board of directors and by having a solid strategic plan. I have one other tool. It was on the handout and we didn't talk about it. And it was called a SWOT analysis, where you look at your strengths and your weaknesses, and then you look at opportunities and threats. Businesses do this all the time, but when you think about it by yourself, for you as your business, your strengths and your weaknesses, those are things I'm good at, I'm not good at, I struggle at, I excel at, people ask me for advice on, I have to go ask other people for advice, right? That's our strengths and our weaknesses. Opportunities and threats, I want you to think about externally. So an opportunity is, I don't, but let's imagine you do. You work in the power industry and your interest is in green energy. Well, if you're in the US, depending on who's in charge of the government, green energy could be an opportunity or a threat to your career. If you are thinking about moving, well, am I moving to a city that has the infrastructure for the industry that I want with my long-term career, or is it just going to get me short-term and I have to move again? Okay, well, maybe I do want to move because I'm young and I want to try out a new city before I'm tied down, but I know that I'm going to have to move again. Okay, I'm making that balance. By having that long-term vision, that strategic vision, you can start to see, do these short-term goals or opportunities line up with those or not? Are those experiences that get me to the job after the next job, or do they not? Right? Okay, I see one more. This is, how can you tell if a potential job will have the culture that will be a good fit? Oh, this one's tricky. This one's super tricky because if you don't know anybody, it's your best foot, right? It's just a guess because an interview, you're being the absolute best you can ever be in the interview. And guess what? So is the company. So you got to really dig in and do your homework. Depending on where in the world you live, there are online resources that can help you. You can reach out to people that are there on LinkedIn that work at that company. You can, I always tell my students their website, a company website is the worst place to find out about culture because nobody puts on their company website, we're just a bunch of money grabbing jerks and we're going to tear you up and spit you out. Like that's not a brand that anybody puts on their website. So their website's going to talk about how they have all these great goals and visions. You have to do the homework and do a deeper dive. You have to really take that burden. And asking questions is the way to do it. There is always the time at the end of an interview where they say, "Do you have any questions?" And that answer is yes. You have to have questions. In those questions, what I want you to do is I want you to ask questions about the culture. Ask that person on the other side of the phone, what do they like about the company? Ask them, what is the strategic vision of the company? Ask them about their work life balance. Ask them about who do they eat lunch with? How do they, what do they do after work? But whatever is important to you for culture, ask them those questions and ask every person you get a chance, right? Ask them all. Okay, I think we have come to the end of the questions. I don't see any more questions. Melody, do you see any more
I
questions?
do not. And I just wanted to say before we end this session today, I wanted to tell you how wonderful you were to tell us your invaluable insights and your expertise. I really appreciate your time and your effort. And I really, really appreciate your make it work attitude in the face of a snowstorm and a couple of technical glitches. Your attitude with everything makes all the difference. And I thank you so much.
I am just so glad to have been here. I am glad we made it work. If anybody in the audience is interested, this making flex work is around flexible work. If you have not yet started your career, you don't have a lot of leverage yet to talk about flexible work, but Reimagine Your Work is an excellent resource for anybody who is thinking about their career and wanting to get started. On the website, I have every resource in both of those books are available for free, right? It's not about me getting the money from you guys. It is about me giving you the skills, right? And the tools. So check out that website. And if you have any questions, send me a note on LinkedIn. I'm happy to continue the conversation. Thank you so much for having me today. It has been a blast.
Thank you.